Thank you. And I was wondering about how to talk about this. I just decided afterwards to read some quotes from mostly my diary that I kept while I was there, and also from Ben Rogers' book and some other person who's been very involved in Burma called James Maudsley. First of all, from Ben Rogers' book, he said that Westerners think that we can give to the Karen, and in some ways we can and should, but we should do so remembering that the Karen have much spiritually to teach us. And I just really realised going to Thailand and Burma how much this is true. So talking about Pastor Winai's, some photos are going to be in the background. I'm not going to talk about them, but you can look at them. Talking about Pastor Winai's orphanage, where we saw the children worshipping, I wrote this, I think it was the same evening. When we got there, they were waving at us, and then we had a service with them, and we were sitting at the front facing them all, and they were so into it, passionate, and not caring about what anyone else was thinking about them. What do we have in the West to be too proud to do that? It's humiliating for us to be ashamed to show our love as they do. And then later on, Ben was talking about how unity does not mean being the same. It means understanding and accepting diversity. And he was saying how the world can and should do more for Burma, but only God can change the hearts. And we were talking to some Karen people whose families had been tortured and persecuted by the SPDC. And he said maybe we can pray that God changes the regime's heart. And all these people who've been persecuted by the regime just suddenly said, amen, yes, please change their hearts. Not thinking twice about forgiving them. And I've never seen such forgiveness as that. And actually I spoke about it later with some other people who showed the same sort of forgiveness. Wrong side. I can't find it. I was just saying the forgiveness that I saw in these people's hearts, without spending much time with them, it was just so clear how they were so tortured in their minds, but they were so ready to embrace any sort of grace that they would. I don't know, it was just, I was just so speechless. I wanted to cry so many times, just seeing them so ready to forgive. I've never heard of anyone with such forgiveness apart from Jesus. And I actually said thank you to some of them sometimes. And I was just saying, you've so much shown me how relevant the Bible is today. Sometimes we hear about Jesus and we're like, oh, whatever, he forgives everyone. But just seeing these people who are ready to forgive people who have killed their families, killed their children, killed their parents, I never thought I would be anyone like that. This was walking through Le Pahur, which was the Burmese village we went to visit. Walking through, I suddenly realised that these people could any day have to leave everything behind, burn their village and run for their lives with all their possessions, or risk getting tortured, raped, killed, or put into forced labour. Most of them smiled at us, and most of the children waved, and the injustice of their situation is so indescribable that just walking through you cannot quite conceive the reality of it. We're talking about the Facebook group called Support the SPDC, and we were just talking about how I just suddenly realised how ignorance is probably the worst culprit in this world, and I've never thought about it before. But it's true, how knowledge is amazing, and it's the same about God, really. If only people knew the truth about it, they wouldn't say support the SPDC, and they wouldn't say, support all these evil things in the world. It's just, ignorance is something I really realised over there, and it made me really value my education over here, which I've never done before. So, we met a family who, there's a photo up there somewhere, who are going to move to England as refugees, to get refugee status. And I was just thinking about how they would be, received over there, how people would react compared to them. I was just thinking, it's not their home. They will be rejected there and treated as if they are criminals. They're always going to be in the wrong. They won't have priority on things. When they are treated as criminals in their own land for even less reasons, just for being the tribe that they are, they have no home and nowhere to belong to, and they have no earthly power to support them. And it makes me so, so angry to just think of that. We're talking at a church, and again, they just, suddenly say, okay, present yourself, and you're expected to stand up and say something. And I was reading the Bible just before they said that once, and so I read the verse to them. And I replaced Zion by the Karen people, and it was Isaiah 51 verse 3, saying, "The Lord will surely comfort Zion, and will look with compassion on all her ruins. He will make her deserts like Eden, her wastelands like the garden of the Lord. Joy and gladness will be found in her, thanksgiving and the sound of singing." And after that I wrote, "It is exactly what it is like here, yet these people are not physically free, and they're still persecuted. God made the impossible happen in this place by living in the hearts of these people. James Maudsley's book is called The Heart Must Break, and most of the days I was there, I was just had it going over and over in my mind. The heart must break, the heart must break. And it's true. I'm feeling so angry, actually as if there's something boiling in my chest, and I am so glad that I have come here. I don't want to be ignorant. People must not let their hearts turn to iron. I need to channel my passions of God's strength to use it for His will. And I kept thinking of all the newspaper articles I've read and thinking, this man was there. And I think this was when we were listening to a monk talking to us. How can we read all this stuff and just take it as a story? We're reading on the BBC website, I read a lot, just read all these stories of atrocities and it's just, another story, oh, that's horrible, But you're just thinking, we're just taking all this in, we're letting our heart just make it seem as nothing, and actually, the heart must break and we must use our compassion. And, and then I wanted to read, the final thing, I wanted to read a Bible passage to you. That's 1 Peter 1 verse 13. It says, "Therefore prepare your minds for action." And I read that a few weeks ago, I think, and I suddenly clicked. And I associated it to a passage from James Maudsley's book that said, "God is a God who loves action. He does not want words or sentiment. He wants us to do what is so plainly obvious, to love our neighbours as ourselves. Mankind is one body. We cannot move forward except together. We cannot leave parts of our body behind. None of us is free until we are all free. We, as citizens, have money, information, associations and a voice. We can use this power to act for ourselves, not to ask someone or some government to act for us. And if I would not do it for whatever reason, I must accept that everyone can claim their personal interests are more important than freedom. But we have no personal interests without first securing freedom. After all, our main task, our chief work is to love, and that generally does not make much noise." And just a final thing about thinking about just challenging you about God's calling in your life. Some Burmese man who Ben Rogers met said that for him, the will of God for each person is where the world's greatest need and your deepest desire meets. So don't think God's going to send you off on something where you're just going to be like, it's really scary, it's really horrible. I really wanted to go to Burma, and I wouldn't be surprised if God called me to do something there. And I just loved it over there. I felt so much at home, and it was so weird feeling so happy over there when I knew I was so close to danger. And I felt, at the same time, I was feeling a bit sick because I was on malaria tablets that weren't very, they make me feel sick. But I felt so happy, and I was so out of my comfort zone, but at the same time, I've never felt as happy as that. And just really think that, what your deepest desire is in your heart, God put that in your heart, and He's got a plan for you. And so it's going to bother you in your life if you don't use that for God. And so really, I just ask God what it is that, where the world's deepest desire and your deepest desire meet. So.